Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1337 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. Pumpkins After Dark. Use the promo code TOMIC15 and save 15% at pumpkinsafterdark.com. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 5 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast from Monaris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making her Toronto Mic debut, is Catherine McClenahan. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It sounds like we just missed our window to actually do this in person because as we speak, you're in LA, but you were just in Toronto, right?
Yes, I was. I was there. I've been back for a week now.
We just missed each other.
I know. And I think I was looking at pictures and I saw you in the background. I went, oh, you were there. And I could have just gone up if I'd known.
Yeah, well, that's as soon as I saw your pictures, I had the same feeling. I was the guy in the Martha and the Muffins t-shirt.
Yes.
So we were at the same place at the same time. I'm really excited to talk to you because that was Roy Thompson Hall, and that was a couple of Fridays ago. So we're going to go back because you're an important part of MuchMusic history. You are a first, and we're going to get into that in a moment. Yeah. But I'm trying to understand, you were in Los Angeles. How long have you lived in the United States of America?
I've lived in the States since 1987. I lived in New York for a couple of years and then moved out here with my now husband when he got a show. And I've been in LA longer than I've been anywhere, and I've lived here for 34 years now. Ha!
Wow.
Yeah.
87. Okay, that's a long time ago. And are you from Toronto, or whereabouts are you from originally?
I grew up in Ottawa, born and raised, and then I lived in Toronto for about 7 years, from like 79 to 87. I was there. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're an answer to a trivia question. Like, to me, this is a significant part of MuchMusic history, but people often wonder aloud, maybe it's just me, Catherine, but who was the first woman VJ in MuchMusic history? Catherine, do you know the answer to that important question?
I certainly do. I do, because it was me. And it was a thrilling time in my life. And, they had looked for over a year. And I was very honored to get the gig. And yes, it would be a good Trivial Pursuit question.
And I bet you a lot of people will get that answer wrong.
Of course. Yes. Especially when they see this documentary.
Okay. So here, we're going to build up to this, obviously, because I want to know exactly. I have a lot of questions around the doc. The documentary is called 299 Queen Street West. You and I saw it together. We weren't sitting beside each other, but we were in the same building watching it together. Yes. So let me just understand who you were. So MuchMusic, who are you, Catherine? No. In lots of questions for you. In 1984, that's when MuchMusic goes on the air.
Correct.
Is that the same calendar year that you become a VJ on MuchMusic?
No, I started in 1985. They were looking for over a year, and it's actually funny how I got the job, which I can tell you about.
Actually, so I'm trying to understand. So who were you when you got the gig? And in great detail, Catherine, how did you get that gig?
Okay, so I'm an actor and a singer and a host and a writer. I was in New York at the MTV New Year's Eve party in January of 1985 with my then boyfriend at the time, Paul Farberman, and he knew a bunch of people at this party, and I knew a bunch of people too. So I introduced him to the guys in Duran Duran, whom I'd known because a friend of mine had gone out with Simon. I introduced him to the guys in General Public. I had done a scene with them in a movie the year before, and they were there. It was great to see them. I introduced him to Vitas Gerulaitis, whom I knew and partied with many times because a friend of mine was a tennis promoter. And after I think the third person I introduced him to, Paul said, "Oh my God, Catherine, you should be a VJ at MuchMusic." I said, "What's a VJ?" And he goes, "A video jock." He goes, "They've been looking for over a year." He goes, "You'd be perfect. I'm calling John Martin when we get back." I'm like, okay. So he called John Martin, and I had an interview with him and Nancy Oliver, and we just hit it off like a house on fire. And they were like, "Oh my God, you're perfect. You're perfect. Okay, now you have to meet Moses." And I'm like, okay. And they're like, "Okay, whatever he says, do not take it personally. Don't take whatever he says, do not take it personally." So I'm like, "So what you're telling me is don't take it personally." They're like, "Yeah." So I have my meeting scheduled with Moses, and it was for 5 o'clock. I remember an afternoon, and I'm waiting up, and this is 99 Queen Street East, where we first started. And I'm sitting outside his office, and at 20 after 5, he walks out, he looks at me, and he goes, "I know you're waiting," and then goes back in again. And I start laughing, and I went, "Okay, this guy's an asshole." And then he comes out 20 minutes later, and he looks at me and he goes, "You're just wearing that because you want a job at a rock station." And he goes back in, and I went, "Oh, he's a fucking asshole. Okay, great. I see why they warned me." And then another 20 minutes goes, like 10 to 6. He finally says, "Okay, come in." And so I walk in and I go, "Hi, Moses. It's nice to meet you too." He goes, "What do I want to hire you for? You with your lawyer father, Ottawa upbringing." He goes, "I already have my WASP. I already have JD." He goes, "I want a French Canadian Eskimo with red hair." And I went, "Well, that's awesome." I said, "I think you should absolutely hire that person when you find that person. In the interim, you should hire me because I'm funny and I'm smart. And most of my friends are either in bands or in the record companies. And I go out to concerts all the time. I'm writing comedy. I'm doing all this stuff." So he kind of loosened up a little bit, and I wasn't taking any of his shit. Like I was just, I was so amused by this whole thing. I was actually hoping there was a camera out while I was waiting for him because I was just laughing and looking at magazines the whole time. So he kind of, warmed up a little bit, and then we talked for another few minutes. I was telling him stuff that I've been doing and writing comedy with my friend Joe Bodalai. And anyway, so then he said, "Well, I've got to go down to the CN Tower. City TV is doing something." He goes, "We could continue our conversation in the car." He goes, "I can't hang out all night." But I said, "Okay, let's continue it in the car and go down there." So we continued in the car, and he was, warming up to me and being a little bit more polite. We get there, and he showed me around what he was doing with City, which was very cool. And then we went up to the party, and he, we talked for a couple of minutes. He said, "I got to work the room." I said, "Absolutely." I said, "I'll let you know before I leave." So I wound up getting a drink at the bar. I went around and had a great time. I saw friends that I knew. I chatted with people I didn't know. And after about 30 minutes, I thought, okay, I'm going to leave now. It's a good time. So I found Moses, and he was talking with this older couple I had just met a little while ago. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to get going." And the older couple goes, "You're not leaving, are you?" And I went, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I got to go." And Moses goes, "How do you know them?" And I said, "Oh, we go way back." I don't know who they were. They must have been some big mucky muck couple. Anyway, so he said, "Okay, send me some of your comedy stuff." And I said, "Okay, I will." And I had Joe send it, and with a note, it said, "Here's my comedy stuff. Hire me." And Moses wrote back, "Okay, I will." And so that's how I got the job. But he never wanted to hire me because I was blonde and blue-eyed, and so was JD Roberts. And he wanted diversity. God bless him for wanting diversity. I think it's fantastic. And, I'm not taking anything away from his genius or his, what he created with Much was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Well, this is all very, very interesting to me. I feel like you're like a missing cog in the wheel here.
Oh, hell yeah.
I've uncovered this like artifact here as an archaeological dig, and this is amazing. Now, I will tell you a fun fact is you talk about, Moses' work in the room and your first time meeting Moses. I actually met Moses for the first time on Friday. So we're speaking here on Tuesday. And less than a week ago was my first time having a
Okay.
conversation with Moses. So, so
Hopefully he's more charming now than he was back then, but you're a guy, so you have a little step up right there.
right. And I was wearing a Toronto tee, and it was a faux retro Toronto tee, which obviously means it was recreated by Retro Kid and Retro Ontario, and they sent it to me. But Moses thought it was the OG, like I had it from the early '80s. I let him live in that fantasy world because it seemed to
Excellent.
be very, very happy here. Okay, so you got the gig. It's interesting that him saying, we have our WASP. I always
Yeah.
wonder, does that apply to everything? Like, we have our Jewish person, we have our black person. It's like we're trying to collect this diaspora here, but we've checked off blue-eyed white person.
Yeah. Yeah. So he really did not he didn't make my time there very easy. Like he would walk up to me just before I'd go, literally seconds before I'd go live on the air, and he'd go, "What are you wearing that for?" And we're back. So, but he was abusive. He was not kind. He wasn't encouraging, and I tried to just stay away from him as much as I could.
Now, when you
Which
say abusive, just to clarify, you mean he was verbally abusive to you?
verbally abusive, yeah, verbally abusive, and also misogynistic, narcissistic, all that fun stuff that rolls in together with that. But I had a wonderful time working there. I loved it. I got some great press, which I sent you. I don't know if you had a chance to read any of them, but I got a lot of wonderful, wonderful support and press. And so I was working there for about 4 months, and I was offered a part in a musical, Yuppies, the musical. And I talked with John and Nancy, and I said, I've been offered this part. I'd love to take it. I just want you to know it's not going to interfere with my job at all. They're going to work around my rehearsal schedule with my shifts on Much. So, and they were like, gave me their full blessing. Absolutely, go do it. And so as soon as Moses found out that I had gotten this job, he fired me. And I was getting as much fan mail as JD Roberts, even though I'd only been there a few months and he'd been there for a year. And I was, the Globe and Mail called me quite splendid. He really didn't have, you can't fire somebody for being a blonde, blue-eyed, I don't know. Anyway, I sued him and I won. I sued him for wrongful dismissal and I won.
Good for you.
And yeah, because it was just the principle of the thing. I didn't get a lot of money because I'd only been there for a few months, but it was the principle of the thing. And I thought, I'm not gonna, you just can't do that.
I'm going to play a clip of you on MuchMusic so people can hear how it sounded back in 1985.
85.
By the way, not a lot of, I think, and now I have a pretty good source on this, but we hear a lot about how Bell Media has this archive, and I often hear it referenced, the MuchMusic library, and
Right.
very few are allowed in there. We talk about this new documentary, and Sean Menard was allowed access, and then Bell Media recently mentioned they're going to digitize this access, which is great. Then it'll last forever. But I don't think there is actually very much from the first decade of MuchMusic. I think they erased all these tapes and taped over them. Like there's very little out there. For example, if I'm looking for footage on YouTube or elsewhere of Catherine McClenahan on MuchMusic, there's not a lot. I found a clip though. But before I play the clip, would you mind just telling those who haven't seen, like who just don't know the history of MuchMusic, maybe they haven't listened to Toronto Mike before, because I've covered this a million times, but who exactly was John Martin and Nancy Oliver?
Well, they were the producers of Much, and John was one of the creators of Much with Moses. And so they, everything sort of had to go through them. And they were, any one of us had problems or concerns or something, we would go to John or Nancy. And
was there a bit of was it a bit of a three-headed monster in that you have John and Nancy and then Moses interfering all over the place? Like,
I wouldn't call it a three-headed monster. I think it ran very well. I think Moses was, he was, I know he wants the best for his station, and I know Bob Cigarini made comments in an article that he wrote about how Moses would come down and yell and scream at people. So I know it's not just me. I think that he was, would yell at or would be I don't know, just
Hey,
mean to.
Catherine, here's homework for you when if you're ever bored or maybe you're going for a run or something and you need to listen to something, go listen to Bob Segarini on Toronto Mic'd, because I've had this conversation with him and he
Oh,
talks
good.
about, getting fired from Much, and it's quite something.
Yeah, yeah, I will listen to it. I'm sure Bob was great. He was such a treasure. Um, I miss him. I miss him. He was fun to work with. That was the joy of working there, that everybody except for Moses was wonderful. They were just really, really wonderful and supportive and kind. And because I was doing something that no female had ever done. Luckily, there had been J.D. Roberts and Christopher Ward and Mike Williams before me, so I could, figure out what to do. But I had a blast there. I loved it, and I wished I could have stayed longer.
It is fascinating to me that we talk about how Moses essentially seems to be judging you for being waspy, blue-eyed, attractive blonde, which is sort of a polar opposite of maybe all the other stations at the time.
Right? Oh, he sent around a memo after I was let go, and for them to discuss me, and it was pretty brutal. He said I had a haughty lady, beautiful attitude. I don't know what that is, but apparently I had that. And then at one point, I was reading all these articles. He said I was too old. Yeah, at 26, I was too old. Meanwhile, all the guys are older. Also, I want to point out, when your interview with Mike Williams the other day, he was saying that he had all kinds of other things going on besides Much. He had a lot of stuff in the music industry that he was doing. So it's okay for the guys to do something, but not for the girls, of course. Again, here's the misogyny, right? And it's the same thing with completely cutting me out of this documentary. Like,
well, hold your fire. We're going to definitely dive into that. I'm going to play you first, ask you a couple more questions about your time at Much, and then we're going to let you free here. Listen, this is your space here. Okay. So this is Catherine McClenahan on MuchMusic in 1985.
Don't Worry Baby from Los Lobos. Before that, Criminal Mind from Gowan, and Ultravox was back at the beginning with Love's Great Adventure. Right now we have music from Glenn Frey. The heat is on. First of all, though, something from Wham. Now this song is going to be dedicated to Manny, who's having a birthday in North Toronto. Happy birthday, Manny. Hope you're enjoying this preview week as we are. By the way, we've got a great Wham contest going on right now. Now you can win with a friend a trip to London, England, to meet Wham. All you have to do is write your name, address, telephone number, and age on a postcard, along with the number of videos that Wham has made. Okay, I'm not going to tell you, but you have to figure that one out by yourself. Send it to Make It Big with Wham, care of MuchMusic, 99 Queen Street East, Toronto, Ontario, M5C2M1. I don't know when the date is. No later than April 26th, and the draw date is April 28th. That was good. 28th. And please do this on a postcard. It must be mailed. If it's not on a postcard, into the garbage it goes. Right now, here is Careless Whisper on MuchMusic.
So there you are.
There I am. I exist.
This is like a proof that we're not making this up, everybody. This is real. So,
and it's. I just want to say,
of course,
my boyfriend at the time, Paul Farberman, blessedly, he taped a ton of my episodes, and I've been going through them, and it's really funny, obviously, to go through them. But I have a bunch of stuff that I'm going to be putting up on.
Okay, so you'll release it into the wild so we can access this? Because like I said, that was literally the only clip I could find.
Yeah, when you Google me, that's the only one that's up there. And I can't remember who put it up because I'm not really good with that kind of stuff. But yes, I'm going to put more up. I'm going to get it. It's on a disc right now. I have to get it somehow on a computer so I can send it out. But yeah, there's a bunch, and they're funny. And J.D. Roberts taught me how to juggle on the air, which was fun. I hope I have that one. I haven't found that one yet.
Do you still have a relationship with John Roberts, as he calls himself now?
I do, actually. We keep in touch on Twitter. I hate calling it X, but we keep in touch on Twitter, and because I have been, very vocal about Fox News and what it's done to our country.
I got some clip about that too coming up. So lots coming up in this episode. So here we are. We've now discussed your time at Much. It sounds like everybody was pretty kind to you except Moses, and it sounds like a bullshit reason you were fired, and that's why you were successful with that wrongful dismissal suit.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you learn that there was a documentary being made about MuchMusic?
When Erica interviewed me last year for her reinvention of the VJ podcast, she mentioned it to me then, and I thought that's very exciting. That's great. She mentioned she was going to be a producer on it. She didn't say what kind of producer, but she said, and so I didn't hear anything else about it until Mike Williams sent me a thing and said, "Are you coming up? Are you coming?" And I said, "I didn't hear about it. I wasn't invited. I don't know if I should." He goes, no, you should definitely come up. You should definitely come up. So he encouraged me, and I thought, well, I don't know if it's really expensive, but I found a return trip for less than $500, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go up.
And there was probably other things you could do in the city while you were.
Oh yeah, this was the Roy Thompson Hall screening was the last night. I had been there for a week. I had a blast visiting friends. I had so much fun. And, because I have a ton of friends in Toronto, and it's wonderful to see them. So I had a really great trip before that last night, and I'm glad that I did.
So here we've got, and when we say Erica, we mean Erica M, just in case people are curious. Which Erica? Of course, it's Erica M. Now, Erica M how did that go? That conversation, I forgot about that conversation on Erica's podcast. That was a fine experience for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, good.
Sure. Yeah.
So Mike Williams says, "Are you coming up? You get the ticket. You're coming to Toronto, and you're going to attend." So did you get did you at least get a comped ticket for the two?
Yes, I did. I texted Erica. Now, this is not knowing anything about the film. And I said, "Hey, I hear the documentary's happening. I want to come up and see it. Do I get a discount if I'm a former VJ?" Right. And she said, she told me to contact Sean Menard. So I did, and I wrote him and introduced myself, told him who I was. And he said, "Oh yeah, if you're willing to come on up and see it, I will have 2 VIP tickets for you." He said, "Just, but don't get mad at me like all the other VJs that you're not featured in the documentary." And I said, "Well, I'd be shocked if I was featured, because this is the first time we're talking," but I didn't know.
If I'm going to read between some lines, and I will say that you were on social media being quite vocal. In fact, for fun, I'm just going to read one of your Instagram posts had the following hashtags. I'm going to run down your hashtags, and then we're going to really get into it, Catherine. But these are all the hashtags you used: Toronto, Ontario, Canada, MuchMusic, Actor's Life, Original VJ, Fun, Friends, Documentary, Rock and Roll, Music, Videos, Gaslighting, Betrayal, Misogyny, Alternate Facts, 2023, 1985. So just those hashtags alone, it's going to get a lot of people's attention.
Yeah. That was the point. I had, as I said, I had such a great time. And when I had talked to Erica, and in my interview last year, she had told me that everyone was going to be in it in clips or something, but only a few VJs were going to be featured, throughout. And I said, well, that makes sense. You can't feature everybody. But so I just assumed we were all in clips. I didn't.
Well, let's find out. So you're sitting in Roy Thompson Hall.
Well, let's go before that, because the red carpet is also something that, I don't think they wanted me there, but I went up. I was there with my friend Eva, and Mike Williams was very insistent, even though he was late for the red carpet. Right. He said, he goes, "You get up there. I'm going to make sure that you get up there." And I was like, well, I'm just going to go up there anyway, because, I was the first female VJ, and I still hadn't seen the film, so I didn't know what was going on. Well, and Erica was really nice. She came over and gave me a hug, and Steve Anthony was great. And I now know Denise didn't recognize me, which was funny. But hey, I need glasses too, so I get it. But anyway, I was like literally off to the side, and and they allowed me in a picture at the end where they had anybody else that worked at MuchMusic can come into this picture. So I was like, okay, I'll go into that one, even though I thought I should have been up there with the VJs, but I still didn't know, right? So I was just okay.
Because you haven't seen this doc, so you're.
And Sean Menard came up and introduced himself to me on the red carpet, and he said, "Thanks for coming." And I said, "Oh, great! I look forward to it." So, okay, ask the next.
So Sean Menard, the director, he's also an FOTM. That's a friend of Toronto Mike. Erica M, by the way, also an FOTM, and Michael Williams an FOTM. Steve Anthony's an FOTM. Denise Donlan's an FOTM, and finally now I can say Catherine McClenahan is an FOTM. So, although later I'll share a fun fact that one of your ex-husbands is also an FOTM, but we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
Okay. Now you're in your seat. The movie is about 2 hours long, this movie, 299 Queen Street West. You're sitting there. Please tell me, I want to know what you thought of the documentary, particularly the fact that you were not seen in this documentary, nor was your name uttered in this documentary.
Yeah. So, I love the film. I mean, the film is great. It's so much fun. It really captured the joyous chaos that was creating this new thing, this new show that nobody had ever done before. And he really captured that. When it got to the point where what he said was Moses decided there should be a female VJ, and then they have a shot of Erica, and I was like, oh no, okay, they're just going to pretend that I didn't even exist, that my contribution as the first female VJ, not only at MuchMusic but also my part in Canadian broadcast history, is just going to be wiped out of this quote unquote documentary.
Do you remember whose voice? Because Sean's voice is not in this doc. So do you remember, was it Erica's voice that made that?
No, it wasn't there. It was a male voice, whoever was doing the voiceover at that time. I'm not sure who the voiceover was, but anyway, it said, it implied that Erica was the first female VJ. She was, she was the second. She started a couple of months after I did. She was still a receptionist when I was the first female VJ. And so I was shocked, but not horribly surprised. And as I said, it was very weird too, being in this room with all these thousands of people and watching this history of, it was such a big part of my life. And it was a big part of MuchMusic too. When I was, the first female, they made a big deal out of it because they had been looking for over a year. So it was, I've been screwed over before in my 64 and a half years. And I hope this will be the last time, but it really, at the time, I just thought, I'm not going to say anything right now. And after, I was very nice to Erica. I was very nice to Sean. I told him I enjoyed his film. I am going to be emailing him. I've been waiting just to, get all my thoughts in order. And the more comments that have been posted and everything, they could have mentioned the fact that I was in the audience, but they really wanted to completely shut me out of the history. And that's why I put those hashtags, betrayal, misogyny, because it's so disrespectful to women. It's so disrespectful to our accomplishments to have this be completely ignored and just, to me, it's gaslighting. It's like you don't exist, which is, I tell you, it's a very, very strange feeling. I felt like I was in an episode of The Twilight Zone. I really did. I was like, is this really happening? This is really happening. And then you kind of doubt yourself. Well, maybe, was I not the first female VJ? Did I all make it up in my head? As your mind starts doing these funny things, it's like, no, I know. But it's just, again, the dismissive, misogynistic, just disrespect of women's accomplishments, not supporting women's place in history, not only at Much, but in the Canadian broadcasting industry. And I was a pioneer for a lot of people. I was the second female VJ in the country. Samantha Taylor was the first at Video Hits.
I have a poster. So it was a gift from Joel Goldberg, and it's the cover of a magazine, and you're sitting there, and it's like, yeah, the cover because Jay Gold is in that cover. Right.
He's on it. We're all on it.
Yeah, Samantha
And
Taylor. Do you remember who
John
else? Christopher
Major.
Ward, John Major.
It was all the I have it somewhere
I should
here.
frame it actually because I intend to frame it because it's kind of.
Yeah.
And Eric is in that picture too, right?
Oh yeah, Eric is there. We're all there. And so I was the fourth VJ. I was hired after Mike Williams. So
So for the record, it was so JD Roberts and Christopher Ward are like tied, I guess. They're in first.
they were the first.
They
Yeah.
bumped through that paper in the first episode.
Yes.
Then
So
Michael Williams, and again, JD Roberts, not yet an FOTM. If you're listening, John, come on, like what's going on here? But okay.
it's time, baby. Come
Right.
on.
So Michael Williams, number 3. You, Catherine, are number 4.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And the first female. It's like,
Which is significant, the first woman VJ. So
yeah.
why
It
do
is.
you think your history was erased from this documentary? Like, why? You think that's misogyny, or do you think because you mentioned in a social media post that Erica was the producer, ... Are you suggesting that it didn't suit the narrative?
I absolutely suggest it didn't suit the narrative. And I don't know whether Moses had anything to do with this doc. I don't know whether he's one of the
No, I can
producers.
tell you, I don't even think he liked it, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I don't know who was producing it, but Erica and I, I wrote her an email after the fact, and I was, I let her have it. It's just like, how could you take my credit away? You're supposed to be empowering women. And this is hypocritical. You're not empowering women if you're taking this. And so I had a long talk with her. We spoke, and she said that she said she didn't know, which I find hard to believe because she had seen an earlier screening of it, I guess a few months ago before it was finished. She said she was a consulting producer and had made a list of people that Sean should include in the documentary, but ultimately it was his decision and his choice. And I certainly understand that, my time there was brief, but, and you don't have to, dwell on it, but to be completely cut out from this and my part in the history of MuchMusic and the history of Canadian broadcasting, it's just, to me, it's appalling. It's just appalling. And, Erica said she felt really bad. She apologized. She said she's going to mention me at screenings, but this is already, the damage is done. I'm not in the film. It's already, whitewashed my contribution. So I don't know. I understand that Sean had to pick certain things and get it under 2 hours. I mean, he could have made that and it could have been a series. Obviously, it could have been. This could have gone on and on and on because there's so much about Much. And I understand that you've got to keep it tight, and there's certain, you're only going to concentrate on a few VJs, but to totally gaslight me and my history there, my history is just, to me, it's appalling. And again, it's another misogynistic putting of women and their accomplishments down. And it's 2023. This shit has to stop. This is bullshit.
So how are things with you and Erica M right now? I'm only meeting you now for the first time, but I'm totally enjoying this conversation. But just coincidentally, I think I've bumped into Erica M 3 times in the past 10 days. I think it feels like, and we've actually, I mean, she's been on the program as well for a longer conversation, but we've had some pretty good personal chats lately. I want to believe in my heart of hearts there's no vindictive meanness meant here.
She said there was no malice.
No malice. That's the word I'm looking for, Catherine.
Yeah.
That's why you're the pro.
She said it wasn't an intentional, but I mean, how can you do the history of Much without putting the first female in? I'm sorry. It just doesn't fly. I admire Erica. Listen, she was thrown into shark-infested waters. I don't think she was, qualified at that time, and she had to sink or swim, and she swam and she swam and she swam, and she put up with all the crap that everyone threw her way. And I give her kudos for creating the career that she did and having the impact she did on Much. I don't want to take any of that away from her, because she really boy, she persevered. She really persevered, and God bless her for doing that. I admire Erica. I have, I don't want to have ill will towards anyone, because hey, we're all on our journey walking each other home, as Ram Dass says. But I will I'm going to be vocal about this, because to me, this is wrong. It's disrespectful. And God bless Monica Diol. She was the only one. She came up to me after the screening, and she said to me, she goes, "They didn't even mention you." And I said, "No, they didn't." And she goes, "Oh my gosh." She goes, "That is so disrespectful." And I said, "I think so too." And God bless her. She found one of the pictures that had me in it, and she posted it on her Instagram and her social media, and gave me credit for being the first female VJ. And I'm very grateful to her for that. That is a woman that is standing up for other women and empowering other women. And that's the example that I want to see moving forward from here, and not having people, gaslight you like you didn't exist because, it doesn't fit their story. It doesn't fit their narrative. I just think that's wrong. It's just wrong.
I am glad that you're speaking up. I'm a big fan of facts. In fact, I got a little bit of pushback, because I watched this documentary, and I actually got turned around on your situation. So initially watching the doc, like obviously you were not mentioned or shown. So if you're just learning about MuchMusic through this doc, you don't realize the first woman VJ was Catherine McClenahan. That's a fact. But it was never explicitly stated. Like there was no statement of Erica was the first female VJ. Like they don't. But then I had conversations with people in the know, like private conversations, because I've been at a bunch of these events lately, and I realize it is implied. Like I've turned around on this. It absolutely is implied that Erica is the first woman VJ. And I'm glad that you're standing up for a fact. Real quick side story is that I saw in this documentary that the Bare Naked Ladies made their television debut on Speaker's Corner. And I went to Twitter. I don't call it X either, Catherine. It's Twitter for me. I went to Twitter and just tweeted like a little tweet about basically the doc says this. The fact is the Bare Naked Ladies make their television debut on YTV. So at the end of 1990, and then that Speaker's Corner clip is in 1991. Like, it's like, no, the fact is this is not their first television appearance. And then I wrote a little thing, and an unnamed person suggested I was an arsonist. And I'm here to say on the record, Catherine, I didn't start the fire. Okay. Shout out to Billy Joel. I didn't start the fire. I just was pointing out there's a mistruth in the doc. And I'm glad you're just pointing out that you are actually the first woman VJ in MuchMusic history.
Yeah, I don't know about any other. There's lots of omissions in the documentary, and that was a little fact that was not quite true. So yeah, and I think it's good to call these things out, especially my my time there was important, and it was important to women, and it was important to broadcasting history, and they've just sort of slipped it by. They also didn't mention Kim Clark Champness. He should have been on there, but
that's equally irksome because of how important he was to MuchMusic, and he's another FOTM. And I heard Kim Clark Champness wasn't even invited to the 299 Queen Street West documentary.
Right. Well, I wasn't either. I invited myself. And I'm really, really glad I did. I mean, I came up to support Erica, to support the film. And it was just so surprising to be there and to just be completely
it hurt, right? Like I can imagine it hurt to hear you tell the story. Like it must have hurt.
It was very hurtful. As I said, I am so grateful that I had a really great week before, and that I'm on antidepressants, because I think if I was not as in a great space as I am now, it would have hurt even more. I would have been even more upset. But as I say, it's not the first time I've been screwed over, but this was one of the biggest times. It's one of the most shocking, shocking things that I've experienced, and especially being in that room with all these people, and it's like, wow, they are not even going to say that I'm here. They're just going to ignore that I even existed. It was very strange. As I said, very Twilight Zone-y, And you know, I am going to be writing Sean and asking him what's the thinking. I mean, I get that you don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but why,
Now,
why would you just, you know, diss women like that? Diss me.
I've got to know Sean a little bit because he came over and we've had a correspondence since then. And it turns out I produce a show for Humble and Fred, and I found out he's very good friends with Fred Patterson's son. Like, and I found out we're connected in all these interesting ways. But I can tell you, as you know, Sean's like in his 30s. So Sean Menard is relying on consultants and you know, creative people to advise him as to what are the key cogs in this wheel, because there's no way he knows your career at MuchMusic. So he surrounds himself with these subject matter experts who advise him. I highly doubt in my heart of hearts that Sean Menard is being misogynist. I think it's more of a telling a story in this time period, and it's more convenient to just build up Erica as the big character, and you are sort of distract or detract from that myth building.
Right. And I'm sure that's what he you know, why he did it. But it's also, if it's a documentary, there's things that you shouldn't leave out, no matter how different they are from your storyline. I mean, it didn't have to be, it could just been a 30 seconds, you know, 20 seconds. I don't know.
That Puff Daddy piece at Woodstock 99 didn't have to be as long as it was. He didn't actually say anything of interest or substance. It was more like, oh, look.
There was a few things that could have been cut a little bit. Yes, absolutely. And I understand he's trying to market it so it will make money in the States. I get that. And he's a really good filmmaker. I'm not taking anything away from his.
Oh, we had a good time, right? Like, it was
a thoroughly enjoyable film.
A nostalgic romp, and it's fun to revisit all that. But it definitely, you and I are, maybe we know too much. Like, it definitely seems like this is MuchMusic for an American audience. Like, you guys didn't see this because you had your MuchMusic, but look what was going on in Canada. And it's like, wow. So you do get I would say you get a lot of long stretches of Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Britney Spears and Spice Girls. I'm like, what are their names again? Oh yeah, the Spice Girls. But you know, so I think I think Sean made choices, and you know, you gotta, you know, he had a lot of choices to make, and then at the end of the day, he has himself a documentary that got a round of applause at Roy Thompson Hall, and I've got mad respect for, he made something.
Oh yeah, he made it. It's a really enjoyable film. It really, as I said, it captures the insanity and you know, the ridiculousness. I posted something on Instagram. I found a clip of me doing a throw, and JD is juggling in the background, and it's hilarious. I mean, it just really shows what it was like there. The phones are ringing, people are walking by in front of you. It was crazy, but it was fun and brilliant, and yeah, I certainly wished I could have been included in the documentary, or was. My friend James Foster, who is one of David's many sisters, she's a very good friend of mine. She goes, this deserves a re-edit.
Well, you know, it's going to be on Crave soon, and that's where, you know, thousands and thousands of Canadians are going to check out this nostalgic romp and remember fondly MuchMusic. It would be nice if there could be like a little edit, just maybe a little edit where maybe Erica references the fact that Catherine McClenahan was the first woman VJ,
Yeah.
and Erica was excited to be the next one, sort of deal. Like, just, you know.
Well, you know, and she did say to me that she was going to say that, post stuff. And I hope she does. She said that she's going to mention me at screenings. I hope she does. I don't know whether that will happen or not, but you know, to me, it's just this is a real, not only a slight, it was a slap in the face. And you know, it would be nice if they could correct it somehow. They could find it in their hearts.
Right. Yeah, it's not too late, but now I'm picturing, like, you know, pop-up video. It's going to be like,
yeah,
little pop-ups, like fact checks and fun facts. And, oh, did you know Catherine McClenahan was the first woman VJ at MuchMusic, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Okay. So I'm sorry you were hurt by this. I'm glad you're here to just, at least anyone who's listening to Toronto Mike knows that you are the first woman VJ, and I'm glad you're doing this. You mentioned David Foster's name. So I'm about to ask you about one of the great David Foster projects that I absolutely love talking about. But first, I found an article. I don't know where it's from. It says Romantic and Frantic. And it has your quotes from you after you were let go. And it's very similar to what you just said. But I'm just going to read. This is what you said. You said, too blonde, too wasp, and too old. He also said, I was really an actress and lacked credibility in the rock world. So this is just an interesting, at the time when they talk about you being let go from MuchMusic, they've got these quotes. So your story remains consistent, but it's interesting to me. I guess the difference between you and Erica is younger, and I guess she's less waspy, but obviously she is also a white woman, but not as waspy and maybe not quite as old as you, but not far off. You only got a few years difference.
Right. And as I said, I was 26 at the time. Who knew I was too old at 26? Of course, the guys were all older, Christopher is like, what, 10 years older than me? It's like, okay, guys can be older, but women can't. Again, it was just, it was an excuse, I guess. And I guess Moses is Erica's uncle, right? She's Marilyn.
Okay, I was gonna ask you, but let's get this right though. I don't believe this is a blood uncle. I believe Erica's mother was very, very close to Moses and his partner Marilyn. Like I think they're uncle-esque.
Well, isn't she Marilyn's sister's daughter?
I don't think they're sisters. I think they were BFFs.
Well,
we need Erica. I've had her on. Maybe I asked her.
We have to ask about this. I was told that she's Marilyn's sister's daughter, so Marilyn's her aunt. Anyway, as I said,
okay, you know what? You
forged a career. She did it, and I give her kudos for that. I take nothing away from her. We get a job how we get a job, right?
Well, I'll say this. If you had a connection, which she clearly did, that would get her the receptionist job, that gets you in the building. Her hustle and her work and hustle gets her on the air, and the fact that she was on the air so long and so beloved, etc. That takes more than just some getting the door open. So I give her full credit. But
I do too.
I am holding a picture because okay. So let me explain the photo because most people are just hearing us now. And then I'm going to ask you about this gentleman. But basically, Sammy Cohn, the drummer for The Watchmen, came over, and he was on the show with the lead singer of The Watchmen, Danny Graves. Big fans of the show. Sammy listens to every episode, and Sammy gave me a picture of Brian Linehan because he wants me to know Brian Linehan would be proud of me. And the sentiment there is that Brian's a bit of a mentor that didn't mentor me. So like sort of somebody I aspired to be in my research and my homework. I like to make sure I spend a lot of time doing research before I talk to somebody like you. And I really admired the way he conducted an interview. You, Catherine, knew Brian, worked with him at 99 Queen Street East. What can you share with me about Brian Linehan?
I loved Brian. He was just one of my favorite people in the building. We didn't get to hang out a lot, but when we did, we were all very excited to see each other. We always gave each other a hug and a kiss. We'd have a quick chat wherever we were. It was always great to go to, building functions where we could hang longer but I loved him as a person. He was just one of those people that, you just feel like you've known forever and you just hit it off. Also, he was such a consummate professional, just one of the best, one of the greatest interviewers ever. And I think I told you at his memorial service that I was there. It was I'm trying to remember where it was, but at one point I was sitting with next to Joan Rivers. We were just in this little hallway sitting together, and I told her how much I loved Brian and how it was so devastating that he had passed. And she told me that he was one of her best friends, and that when her husband Edgar committed suicide, Brian was the first person that she called because his partner had committed suicide. And so they were, kindred spirits in this horrible, horrible bond. And we just, I had this lovely moment, probably about 10, 15 minutes, just chatting with with Joan Rivers, who was just one of the nicest people, and she loved him so much. And I didn't know that she had called him first. I think she wound up staying with him for a few weeks, and she said she could never have gotten through it without Brian Linehan.
Wow. Okay, I'm glad you shared that story because it's Brian sadly is never going to be on Toronto Mic'd, and we lost him far too soon. And it's funny that you and Michael Williams both just light up when you talk about Brian. What did Michael Williams tell me? That Brian was, because I noticed you called him Mike Williams. He told me never call him Mike. He says it's only Michael, but maybe you're allowed to call him Mike. Yeah, I'm not allowed to call him Mike. Only you can do that. But
Okay.
he did say that Brian was like his favorite person. When he was working at 99 Queen East.
He was just a lovely, beautiful energy, open, kind, from the heart man. He was just lovely every time you saw him. And it's so sad that he's not with us, but he's listening now.
He's listening now.
He's listening.
And what he wants to hear is he wants to hear about something that happened a couple of weeks before you started at MuchMusic. And a little background here is that I have literally done a 2.5-hour episode deep dive into Tears Are Not Enough. Like I have, and every time, in fact, I have later this week, I'm talking to Randy Bachman and I got to find out why he wasn't there. If you know why, tell me. But what can you tell me about the recording of Tears Are Not Enough?
I can, because I was there. Wow. And I was one of the few, I mean, I was the only person there that probably shouldn't have been there, but Paul Farberman got me in and actually put me to work. I was, running around getting waters and coffees and all that stuff. And the other thing that I did was they had a sweatshirt made, Tears Are Not Enough on one side, We Can Bridge the Distance on the other. Looks like one of those Wham, a big white with big black lettering, right?
Right, of course.
There were 2 sweatshirts made, and they only wanted me to get one of them signed by everybody. So I got, I wound up meeting everyone, which was such a joy, and got them to sign. And so that was pretty great.
Do you remember anything you can remember from that day that might be beyond the ordinary? I know there's a documentary film, and we kind of hear, in fact, you mentioned that you have a relationship with David Foster that we can touch on after this. But David Foster's telling Neil Young to get into key, and Young says something like, "That's like my sound, man." Like this.
Yeah.
What did you witness during this?
I witnessed a lot of things. There were comedians that were there that David just threw in at the end. Get in there. It was really, was it Richard Manuel? He came really late and looked really, he was really out of it, like out of it. I don't know what was wrong with him, but he may have been sick. I don't know. The funny thing was that there were all these press outside, right, clamoring, and I went out at one point and everyone was like, and I can't remember, maybe it was Denise, I can't remember, but there was a couple people from Much there, and they were like, "What are you doing here?" I said, I'm helping out.
Wow.
And so they really wanted people to come out and give interviews, and they were like, "Can you get John Candy? I said, "I can ask him. I don't know whether he'll come out, but I'll ask him." And so I did. I went up to him and I said, "There's a whole bunch of people out there that would love if you would just went out and said hi." And so he did, because he was just the greatest guy ever.
I was going to say, speaking of great Canadians we lost too soon, put John Candy at the top of that list.
Yeah, John Candy. He was so great. And so it was fun to be there and to be amongst Canadian musical royalty. And that was just one of the best days of my life. And I have the extra sweatshirt that was never signed. I have the original. And I was thinking it would be really great if I could get people that are still alive to sign it, and maybe auction it off for charity. I don't know. I'm open if anybody wants to get a hold of me for that.
Better hurry. We're losing them quickly now. Gordon Lightfoot's passed away.
Oh, I know. I had tickets to see him in LA, and it kept getting postponed, and then he passed. I was so bummed to not see him here.
Yeah.
But it was such a magical day, and that recording was a piece of history. And I was so thrilled to be there.
Amazing. So did you see, was it Mark Holmes from Platinum Blonde who showed up in the limo?
I used to go out with a German guy and he called them Platinum Blonde. I loved how he said Platinum Blonde. I used to hang out with Mark back in the day. I don't remember him showing up in a limo because I was probably inside already.
Right.
But
well, Dan Hill told me, so Dan Hill's been on the program, and he told me maybe Mark Holmes wasn't behaving the way you should behave for a recording for famine relief in Africa.
I can't remember that part, so I don't know what to say. But Mark was a lot of fun back in the day, and I just saw him on the Canadian the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I was in the room with him on Friday. Was that Friday or Thursday? Thursday. Yeah, absolutely. I was there on the red carpet covering that event.
I loved it. I loved seeing these people. It's like, oh my God, I haven't seen them in almost 40 years. And I was like, is that Mark? Oh my God, it's Mark. Hi, Mark, if you're listening. Sorry I didn't get to see you. Hopefully next time.
I love it. So David Foster, like, how do you know him? Because I have in my notes here that you presented David Foster with his very first Juno Award back in '85.
I did. It was the Juno presentation, and I had just finished working at Much, and I was now working at CBC on a show called Romantic Rock, and they had me present with John Zawierski. We were the first presenters of the show, and we were introduced by Andrea Martin and Martin Short, which was fun. Wow. And John Zawierski was so nervous. He's a Canadian filmmaker. He won an Oscar in a documentary he made years ago. But yeah, so David Foster, that was his first Juno, and I got to present it to him. So I've known him since 1985, and I'm really good friends with his sister James now. I met her years later in Los Angeles. But I love running into David because we have this history, and he's great, and he's happy and doing well, obviously, and I'm very thrilled for him.
And you're still tight with Christopher Ward, right?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, me and James and Christopher, we have our Zoom calls, our regular Zoom calls, and it's great. And he lives here a bunch of the time, so I get to see him, and I love Christopher. He's great.
Wild. Now, he was noticeably absent from the documentary, Christopher. But
he was shown in clips. He and JD were both shown in clips.
Archival footage, yes, of course.
Yeah, but no, not interviewed.
Well, you can't. They obviously were able to make the doc by cutting out Catherine McClenahan, but you cannot make that doc and cut out Christopher Ward, right?
Well, that would be sacrilegious, I think. No, Christopher is a genius, and his contribution to Much is, and also the stuff he did on City as well, is invaluable. Yeah, you couldn't do it without him.
Well, then you couldn't show Mike Myers doing Wayne Campbell before Wayne's World, before Saturday Night Live.
Right, exactly.
Great footage there. Great footage.
Okay. Oh yeah, so much fun.
So, Catherine, we're going to blitz through. I want to know a little bit more about you since 1980. So you mentioned you went on, what was the show called? Romantic
Rock. It was a CBC. We only did one season. It was 13 episodes. And it was, slower romantic stuff, when you come home and you want to just relax, or you want to, don't relax in the bedroom, whatever.
Hey, now.
I had a lot of guys from prison writing me. That was fun. I guess they like romantic rock in prisons.
Well, there's a lot of lonely nights there, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So am I right that you end up on the radio in New York City?
I did. I did a morning radio show on WDRE. This was great how I got the job. Warren Cosford. Hi, Warren. He was, he worked at Chum. He was a big mucky muck and Chum for many years, and he'd always wanted me to do radio, and I never wanted to do radio, which I'll tell you why later. I just didn't want to do it. I thought people in it were kind of sleazy in the business, and but when I was living in New York, after I moved away from Toronto, and I heard that he was managing the station in WGRE, and they were looking for a morning team. They wanted a male-female morning team. And I called him up, and And I said, hey, I hear you're looking for a morning person. He goes, yeah, you want the job? And I went, yeah. And that's how I got it.
I
And
think there are
so,
a lot of people at 299 Queen Street and before that 99 Queen East would have like given their right arm to get a radio gig in New York City.
oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it was great. And I, at that time I was an illegal immigrant. And so they got me a work permit, and it took them 3 months, and they got it for me. And it was fun. It was a fun job. I was the cat. We were Danny and the cat. I was the cat.
So how long did you do this in New York City?
I was there for about, I don't know, it was like 5 months. And the deal was, after 3 months, I was supposed to get a contract and a raise. So we were going to see whether they liked me, whether I liked them. So after 3 months, crickets. And I'm like, I'd always have an agent, right? I've never had to deal with anything myself. And I'm very polite Canadian. So I went into Warren's office. I said, hey, I was supposed to get a raise and a contract. And then he goes, oh, yeah, let me ask the owners. And so another week went by, and I went in again. And I don't know if I was talking to Warren or the other man that was one of the guys there. I can't remember. And he goes, oh, no, I'm sorry. No, we can't afford to give you a raise and a contract. We just put in a new air conditioning system, and we can't afford it. And I was like, I don't think the air conditioning system should have anything to do with me getting a contract or a raise. And there were some other things there that were like, whenever we would be sponsoring a concert, the guy who would hand out the tickets would hand them out to all the secretaries that worked there. And I could never get a ticket to go see the shows that we're promoting and I'm talking about on the air.
Wow.
So that was a little annoying. But anyway, it went. I never got the contract. I never got the raise. And then my boyfriend, Bill Fagerbacke, at the time, got a show out in Los Angeles, and he wanted me to move with him. And I thought, you know what? I'm not being treated well here. I'm not making enough money, because I was living in Manhattan and working in Long Island. So it was getting up at 4 a.m, getting a taxi to go to Penn Station, changing trains in Jamaica, getting a train to Long Island. And then if there was no cabs or the gal doing traffic wasn't there, I was hitchhiking in the dark in the middle of trying to get to the radio station.
Right.
But and then so Bill got a job in Los Angeles. And so I thought, well, I want to go. I want to do that. I want to move out with him. And so I gave them a week's notice. And as soon as I walked in, I said, I'm sorry, next Friday is going to be my last day. And they said, oh, would you want more money? And I went, oh, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh, that's how you do it. Oh, I'm so stupid. I said, well, yeah, I did, several weeks ago when I said I would like a raise and you didn't give me one. But I said, no, it's too late. We're moving. And they were freaked out. They were totally freaked out, very upset.
All right, I have a question about this. It says move to LA. So this is at the time, this was your boyfriend, Bill?
Yes.
Okay. Was this show Coach?
Yes.
Okay,
and
that's a big show.
It was a big show, and it was a mid-season replacement for the first couple of years. So they didn't do a whole season; they would do like a half a season, and it wound up running for 9 years, becoming a major, top 10 show for ABC. It had 14 different time slots because they kept moving it in. If a show would fail, they'd bring Coach in, and the numbers would go back up, and then it was an amazing time. We'll put it that way.
All right. So before we just, close the chapter, I know you guys are no longer together and I know how awkward that can be, but can I just play a clip and tie it to your ex-husband, Bill, that was in Coach? So can I play a little clip here?
My husband? Yes, go ahead.
Wasband. I like that. Okay. I have a was wife, but I don't think it works as well as a wasband.
Wasband.
All right.
Yeah.
So here's a few moments of this.
Nothing quite like the joy of sandcastling, eh, buddy? How you doing over there?
Everything's dandy in Patrick's Kingdom.
Oh, a structure like that can't protect a king and his subjects. Here, let me help you. First, you should start all over.
Well, what are you doing? You destroyed my castle!
I'm just trying to help, buddy.
I don't need any help.
Here are those architectural plans you requested.
So this, of course, is SpongeBob SquarePants, and the voice we should be focusing on is that of Patrick Star.
Yep.
Yeah, the big dumb guy. That's him.
So hold on, I'm going to pause for a moment because I do like the fun facts, and then we'll move on to how you're connected to an FOTM. But
Okay.
you were married to the voice of Patrick Star from SpongeBob SquarePants.
I slept with the starfish. You know, it would be funny when people would run into me, whether it was when Bill was on Coach or when he was on Coach, people go, does he really talk like that? Because he, spoke like that on Coach too. I said,
Yeah.
I would say, no, but he is that stupid. And people would go, oh, and I go, it's a joke. It's comedy. I'm joking. He's actually really, really smart. We are friends, which is, I'm very grateful.
Good.
He broke my heart, but I'm okay now and ready. I'm ready for dating again after 12 years.
So you're eligible?
I'm eligible. Yes, I am.
All right. Let me make it a little more awkward and ask you about another ex. Okay. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Bring it on.
How many times have you been married, Catherine? That's a very personal question, but how many times?
Twice.
Okay. So one is Patrick Star. I just think that's funny to say that sentence. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
You're married to Patrick Star, but you were married to an FOTM. Is that correct? An FOTM, friend of Toronto.
Yes. I was married to Eugene Velitis very briefly. We got married in 1982. And, we had been on and off for many years, but I was 23, he was 25. We were just kids. And we didn't have any kids, but we had, we had a fun few years together, but it was just too young. So we split up, but we're still good friends. I love Eugene. He's been so supportive of me through this. As has Paul, my Paul Farberman. It's been really great to hear from people that I love dearly and they're supportive, and that's been great.
Okay, again, so we don't bury the lead. You were married to, I know you call him Eugene, but we know him as Gene from Jesse and Gene. This is pre-Jesse and Gene, though. So you were no longer married when Jesse Dillon enters Gene's life.
Yes, that was afterwards because he was doing the morning. He was doing the news on Q107, and Jesse and Gene was after me.
Interesting. I find this fascinating. Maybe I need to, raise my bar of fun facts. But I think it's a fun fact that you were married to Patrick Star and Gene from Jesse and Gene. And I'm glad you get along with both of these guys now. That's cool.
Yes. Well, it's much better to get along than not get along,
Right.
in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I mean, we're all nice people, so no reason we can't get along.
Can I play a little bit of music and ask you about this?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's listen to this.
Oh.
When marimba rhythm starts to play, dance with me, make me sway, like a lazy ocean hugs the shore. Hold me close, sway me more, like a flower bending in the breeze. Bend with me, sway with ease. When we dance, you have a way with me. Stay with me, ooh, sway with me. Other dancers may be on the floor, dear, but my eyes will see only you. Only you have that magic technique. When we sway, I go weak. I can hear the sound of violin.
Catherine, you can sing.
I can. I can tell where that was shot. Yes, I have a YouTube channel that has a lot of my stuff up from a few years ago. And I've decided I'm going to do an album next year because I have so many people. When are you doing an album? When are you doing an album? So it's like, okay, all right, I'll do one next year.
So if people want to hear you singing American Songbook standards, they can go to youtube.com/Catherine McClenahan.
Yes, it's all there. It is there, my singing. And there's another thing on YouTube that I have. I don't know if you know about it. I co-created a show with Jennifer Edwards called Two Blondes Don't Make a Right. And we have about 15 episodes up on YouTube under official 2, the number 2, Blondes Don't Make a Right, all one word, no apostrophe and don't. And those are fun.
Yeah, I checked out the synchronized swimming episode.
That's the best one. I mean, that was one of the funniest ones. Did you laugh? I hope you laughed.
No, you're a talented woman, multi-talented woman. And here, this is a wild mind blow, I think, as well. There's so many mind blows in this episode, but you have been a volunteer with the LA Sheriff's Department for over 30 years.
Yes, I have.
I need to hear this story. Like I didn't even know they had volunteers of the LA Sheriff Department. Like, tell me about this.
Yeah, so I've been a member of our local arson watch for over 30 years. I live in the Santa Monica Mountains, and it's a very high-risk fire area. And so on high-risk red flag days, which are really hot and windy days, we have patrols that go out around the surrounding areas. And I used to do that a lot, but now I am an arson watch base station operator. So I'm the one that gets the hourly calls. And we're just like the eyes and ears of the fire department. If there's a car off to the side of the road in the middle of nowhere, we'll note the time, the license plate, just in case there's any incident of arson and we have something. Everything's destroyed at the end of the day. We don't, we're not harassing people or anything. But yeah, so I'm a nerdy volunteer with the Sheriff's Department. I'm also my neighborhood network coordinator for the Topanga Coalition for Emergency Preparedness. I was working on the emergency preparedness book that we have here in Topanga. That was the first, it was like the first non-city, I'm trying to think of the word and I can't, I'll think of it in a minute when I'm trying not to think of it. But we had an emergency preparedness guide that we put out several years ago that's has lots of information for people and what to do that live here when there's an emergency, fire, earthquake, flood, whatever.
Well, it's ironic because I was accused of being an arsonist.
Oh, you were? Yes, right. Well, no, you're not. They just don't like certain facts, right? They just don't want to hear certain facts, and they don't want you to make waves. But I think we're here to make waves. We're here to.
Fire's there. If I blow a little oxygen on it, it's just shining a light on
exactly. Exactly.
Yes, thank you.
So it's I have arson watch signs on. We put them on our cars, and yeah. So it's I wanted to do this because I had a lot of time. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I thought I want to help my community. So that's one of the things I volunteer with. Yeah.
And you're a little bit of a nerd, so it scratches that itch.
Sure. Yeah. Nerd.
Does Moses know you're a nerd? I'm going to tell Moses. Okay.
Tell Moses I'm a nerd.
I want to close. I'm not closing yet, but I want to close with the not so young and the breastless. But just before that, I have to ask you about a term you've used to describe yourself. And the term is claircognizance.
Yes, claircognizant.
Okay. So tell me what the heck that means. I can barely say it. And then how does it apply to you? So
the first time I was aware of this was in the early 80s. I was, I was living in Toronto, but I was visiting a friend in Santa Monica that I studied theater with in New York and in London. And she lived in Santa Monica, and I was staying at her place. And one day she was had to go to work, and I was going to go visit Michael Damian, who lived in Calabasas. I knew him through Paul, because he had a record at CBS Music in Canada. So
dream on.
So Michael Damian was one of the only 2 people I knew in LA at the time. So I got out my handy Thomas guide, and I looked at, I saw, Topanga Canyon Boulevard. I can take this and go right up to Calabasas. So as I'm driving through the canyon in 1983, I got this overwhelming weird feeling at the beginning. I'm driving like wow, this is so familiar. Why is this so familiar? And then I get to the center of town, and I had a download of knowledge that I was going to live here someday. It wasn't a premonition. It wasn't a I think. It was an absolute knowledge that I was going to live in Topanga. And it was so bizarre because I'm a Canadian. I had no intention of living here. So, you know, it was years later when Bill and I were looking for a house to buy. And I said, there's a place called Topanga. I'm supposed to live here. And we bought the first house we saw and we lived in that one for 4 years and then moved into this house where I've been for, it'll be 30 years in April. I've been in this house.
Wow.
And so, and I've had it several times, like before the fire that we had in 93, we were living in Old Canyon, and I was pregnant with my daughter, Carson. And I'd read an article about our arson watch that I'm a member of. They had an article in the LA Times, and it had said that there'd never been a fire, and that 10 years the arson watch had been going, and there'd been 3 fires set in Laguna the week before. And I just knew some asshole was going to start a fire. So I packed up all the videotapes, all the photo albums. I had them in boxes by the front door 3 days before the fire hit. And I was going to take a nap that morning. And the voice in my head says, look out the window. And I went, okay. And I looked out the window and I saw it was started half a mile from my house. So I called 911 and they said they'd just gotten a call. So I think I was the second call in for that fire. And, you know, packed up everything, wound up, you know, evacuating for 5 days. We stayed at Jerry and Shirley Van Dyke's guest house with my baby.
The coach. Jerry was in coach.
Absolutely. That's why this was during that time. And that was bizarre. You know, it was bizarre because it was the first major fire in a long time in our area. Luckily, our house was not you know, burnt down. There was, and then a few months later, we had the earthquake in January, and I knew that we were going to get an earthquake because there were 3. I felt 3 in Santa Monica the week before, and so I made sure I got a lot of supplies. I got food, I got water, and there was a plant that was up on a overlook that we had from the top floor into the living room, and it was too heavy. I couldn't lift it because I was, you know, 7 months pregnant, and I asked Bill to move it 3 times. And he didn't. And that was the biggest mess I cleaned up, that smashed up. But I knew 3 days before, again, that we were going to have the earthquake. So, and I knew Barack Obama was going to be president 4 years before he was, because I saw him speak at a fundraiser at Bergamot Station, and I had goosebumps, and I'm like, he's going to be president. He's going to be president. And I came home and I told Bill, I said, oh my God, I've just seen our first Black president. His name's Barack Obama. He goes, who? I said, Barack Obama. He's going to be president. He's going to be president. So there's certain things that I know, and it's, you can Google it. I mean, we all have psychic abilities. I don't know why I have this one, and I mean, it is very, very strong when it happens.
But has there ever been a moment where you sense something that was going to happen, but it just never did happen? Like, are you just cherry picking the times it happened, or are there times
when I've had this, it's been absolute knowledge.
Is there anything you're sitting on right now, like anything that you know is about to happen, you can tell me about?
I don't know specifically. I know good things are coming to me. I don't know what they are yet, but I have that feeling.
Well, you're an FOTM, and if you were here, and you're not here, but I'm just going to let you know that if you were here, Catherine, I would have a delicious lasagna for you from Palma Pasta.
Oh my God, I'm coming back.
I know. Next time you're in town, get over here. You've met so many famous musicians. I would have you back just to play music from musicians you've interacted with, like Barbra Streisand. Like, I mean, we could do a whole episode just on these.
I was paid to sing for Barbra Streisand.
Well,
she was one of 25 people at a luncheon.
I happen to know that. I have what you have. I knew that. So
but that's a good one. My Joe Walsh story is good. My Martin Short story is funny.
Well, really honestly, good. You'll be back in Toronto at some point, right?
I will.
Okay. And when you are back, you come over, we kick out these songs and we talk about all these celebrity interactions. And then I'll give you ready for this? I'll give you a wireless speaker from Moneris so you can listen to Yes, We Are Open, the award-winning podcast from Moneris hosted by FOTM Al Grego. It will inspire you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Do you drink? I get the feeling like maybe you don't. I'm going to find out right now in real time. Do you drink beer?
I don't drink beer.
I
It's
didn't
the
think
only
so.
thing I don't drink. Well, no, that's not true. I don't drink a lot of things. I like wine,
Wine. Okay,
tequila, vodka.
off the top, so I'm thinking Great Lakes Brewery. It's mainly beer, but they make a wonderful vodka soda. I'll get a vodka soda from Great
Perfect.
Lakes beer for you. So
Perfect.
thank you, Great Lakes. And I'll have something, a measuring tape from Ridley Funeral Home. I'll make sure I have that for you as well.
Oh my God, my life will be complete.
So here, actually, since I'm on a roll here, Catherine, I'm just going to shout out recyclemyelectronics.ca because that's where you go to find out where you can drop off your old electronics and old tech so it can be properly recycled. And of course, this is October. Halloween is at the end of the month. Pumpkins After Dark is an amazing event that's in Milton, Ontario. You can save 15% right now on your tickets to Pumpkins After Dark with the promo code TOMIC15. And the Advantaged Investor podcast from Raymond James Canada is now available wherever you get your podcasts. This is from Raymond James Canada, of course, and you can get valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. It's a great podcast on finances. Now you're good to go. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. Let me hear this story that you're working on. Maybe it's a solo show. It's called The Not So Young and the Breastless. I'm interested in the show, but of course, I'm very interested in what inspired you to do this and what prompted it and how you're feeling.
Well, I feel great. I got breast cancer in 2007, and it was, obviously a very sobering time when you get that diagnosis. But I went into the very holistic, and I completely changed my diet and lifestyle. I shrank my tumors to less than a third of what they were. But I was bullied by my doctors into getting a double mastectomy. That was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life because I knew I had shrunk my tumors. I have photos to prove it. But they are very, very much, especially back then, surgery. They make money too. The doctors make money on whatever surgeries they get if they can. If you get them on chemo and all this stuff. So my show is about my experience with that. Also, how my life changed. Obviously, it's my journey through breast cancer, divorce, and spiritual enlightenment. And
the old-time worst segues in the history of Toronto Mike. And this is me shouting out Ridley Funeral Home before talking to you about your battle with breast cancer.
Well, blessedly, I'm still here, and I live to tell the tale. And there's a lot of women that have breast cancer stories that are similar to mine with with what the medical community wants you to do. And so that's a part of the show, and it's a musical, and
the show is a feel-good show. Like this is a feel-good.
Feel good. Get it?
Oh yeah. Okay. No, that's very clever. Okay. I knew you were sharp from the minute we started the Zoom, actually. But so did I hear you right that you regret the double mastectomy? That maybe this.
Yeah, because I didn't need it. I don't think I needed it, but they bullied me. What if it's in your lymph nodes? You've got daughters. You've got it. It's not going to go away on its own. It's like, I know I'm changing everything. You can see how much I've shrunk my tumors. It's going away because of what I'm doing to it. But, they're all in a Western, slash and burn kind of mentality.
No, it's interesting only because very recently, and this is another homework assignment for you, Catherine, you can go listen to Kim McDonald. She's been on the Weather Network here in Canada for 25 years, but she had the double mastectomy and she talks about the decision and everything. And it was quite an interesting discussion about that. But it sounds like you miss your breasts?
Yeah. You kind of do when you have them. It's like, would you miss a part of your anatomy if it was chopped off? Yeah. So yeah, it's not, and the implants, they're not the same, they're cold. They're right under the muscle. They don't move. They're very, very different. It's like they're placeholders. And I'm sure that they do better surgeries now than they did, in 2007. So,
Do you think you would have been as bullied with our medical system in Canada, or do you think this is a product of the privatization?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But at that point, my marriage was breaking down, and I was very depressed, and it was, as time went on, I just got more and more depressed, and so I just said, okay, fine. But yeah, it was a big mistake that I made, and I didn't appreciate the doctors just not appreciating what I was doing. And when I showed them the pictures of the 2 MRIs and the difference, and the one, they just couldn't understand. Well, what are you doing? I said, I'm told you what I'm doing. No milk, no dairy, no sugar, no coffee, no caffeine, sound healing, light healing, shamanic journeying. I did everything, and they shrank. So it was like, I cured my cancer, but they wanted to get that surgery in there. So anyway.
Glad you're talking about this, because, you don't hear this side of the coin very often.
No, you don't. And I want women to go with their guts. You got to go with whatever feels right for you. That's what you should do, because your higher self knows. And, it was very interesting time too, because people are like, oh, you do the surgery right away. They all have their opinions, and they're going to let you know what you should do with your body, and there's 7 or 8 different kinds of breast cancer. Like, you don't know this stuff until you get it, So anyway, it was a journey. I'm glad I'm on this side of it now.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling so good, and I'm glad we got to meet, even though I was a week away from meeting you in person. We're probably 10 feet away from each other for a chunk of that night, and we just didn't even know it. But I'm glad I got to learn more about your career, and we got to set the record straight that Catherine McClenahan is the first woman VJ in Music history. And you know what they say they say flags fly forever. No matter what happens with the Toronto Raptors, we were always the 2019 Raptor NBA champions, and you forever will be the first female VJ in Music history.
Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun chatting with you.
Quick question, though. Did you get feedback from Barbara Streisand when you performed in front of her?
Oh, yeah. She loved us. Hey. Loved us. We were singing in an a cappella trio. And oh, my gosh. She was great. She did love us. Thank God.
And Joan Collins was in the crowd, too, right?
There were 25 women there. And Joan, who looks as fabulous as ever. And here's the funny thing. We had no material 45 minutes before the gig. No material.
Yeah, don't bury the lead. That's amazing.
So we were drastically trying to get material, and we finally did, and thank God.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,337th show. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Toronto Mike. Catherine, I know you're on Instagram and Twitter. Just remind us what your handles are to follow you.
It's Catherine McClenahan. It's my name. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and all those fun things.
You're looking for Catherine, you can find her.
Yeah. And I have a website, but I am updating it because it needs updating.
And much love to those who make this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. That's Palma Pasta. That's Raymond James Canada. That's Moneris. That's Recycle My Electronics. That's Pumpkins After Dark. And yes, that's Ridley Funeral Home. See you all Thursday when my special guest is Ed Keenan from the Toronto Star. See you all then.